Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and Mercedes-Benz has come out with a new model. This, what you're looking at right here in front of you, is the 2024 Mercedes-Benz CLE-class. This one specifically has the 2-liter turbo, making it the CLE-300, and technically 4MATIC is on there as well because it is all-wheel drive. Essentially what they did is they took the C-class coupe and the E-class coupe and merged them together to make the CLE. Makes sense, right? So you're getting 2 doors, you're getting the classic Mercedes coupe sleek body profile here, you're getting some class-leading technology, and overall, a luxurious package for a very targeted sort of buyer. I mean, it's not a surprise. Mercedes doesn't expect these to be the hottest seller in their portfolio, but it does fill that niche of certain people who probably only drive with themselves, maybe one other person, and they want a car that puts form over functionality. And this is an example of, as a car reviewer, a product in a situation where I have to step out of my preferences and try to put myself in the mindset of somebody who would be in the market for a car like this. Because admittedly, I am a big function over form sort of person. I mean, gosh, I've got a 1999 diesel truck as my quote-unquote daily driver, and then our other vehicle is an electric Chevy. So I am just about the furthest away from the target market of this car. But I can appreciate the beauty lines in it. I can appreciate the subtleties, the form, and I can especially appreciate the technology and the fit and finish inside the vehicle. So today we're going to go for a little bit of a drive. We're going to talk about how Mercedes is continuing to move forward with the execution of some of their gasoline products here, and sort of what the new CLE offers both in this 300 series form and the inline 6, which is about $10,000 more than this one you're looking at here. It's tough to me to say if it'd be worth it. I've driven that powertrain before and it's very good, but both of these powertrains, the inline 4 and the inline 6, are very, very smooth and subtle, and this one still provides a good amount of power. So I do think this is probably the way to go, because for most people I don't think spending the extra $10,000 is going to really justify that bigger motor, because this one is still quite good. Let's take a quick look at the trunk just for practicality's sake. Again, decent size in here. Mercedes says it should be able to fit up to 3 golf bags. Looks like it'd be a little tight if your drivers were too long, but maybe you take the drivers out, put them right here, and then you put the golf bags further back. I'm not quite sure. No spare tire, but you do have an inflation kit down there and a decent amount of underfloor storage here, as well as your towing eye hidden there, and a little Mercedes-Benz grocery bag holder. Nice to have there. Good thought. The seats do fold down in roughly a 40-20-40 split fold right there, so you should be able to exaggerate your trunk space pretty well if you should need it. This one you're looking at starts around $58,000, but as spec'd, 70 grand, and a good bit of that comes from an AMG line package that gives us these nifty wheels, as well as a little bit more of a performance tire and some other appearance bits. And appearance is obviously a big topic for a coupe like this, and you can really customize this new CLE class in a lot of different ways to fit it how you'd want. Admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of this color. It's a bit cloudy today, so you're seeing a lot of reflection off of it, but it's not a super rich, deep, sort of strong striking red. It's kind of a pale red. Not a big fan of it, but the car itself is very attractive. There's also an interior bit I'm not a huge fan of as well, so let's hop in and I'll show you that now. Bringing open the big coupe-like doors. Yes, pillarless, love to see that. So like I said, it's larger than the outgoing C-Class coupe, and in a lot of ways it's as large, if not larger, than the E-Class coupe as well. They've optimized space pretty decently. Check out this cool floating armrest area. I like that. Let's pop open, or rather pop forward the driver's seat and get into the back. Now, knee room and leg room are both very good back here. However, at 5'10", 32-inch inseam, I am having trouble sitting upright back here, and that's a bit disappointing because look at all this space. I mean, this seat is set at my 5'10" driving position, so this sort of space is very good back and forth, but I really could not sit back here for any length of time because the headroom is just too tight. But you do have air vents back here, although no sort of power or fold-down armrest, so probably a little bit more for kids, and I can understand that, because again, it's a coupe. You'd be getting a sedan if that's what you needed. But look at this beautiful leather right here. I'll have to double check if it's MB Tex or full leather. We'll take a look at the window sticker here in a moment. Release myself, and you can see all around the cabin Burmester speakers. One thing cool that Mercedes-Benz has done is that they've equipped the CLE class as standard with a 17-speaker Burmester audio system. I gotta say, it's outstanding. We have a separate review on it. You can check the link below, but it has been a very, very good sound system. And if you pay a little bit more for the Pinnacle trim in here, then you get Dolby Atmos support. But even without that Pinnacle trim and the Dolby Atmos support, you do still get the 17-speaker 3D surround sound system. So I'm glad that you don't have to pay extra for it. Throw my device in here on the wireless device charger, right down in there. It's way in there, but I gotta say, as much as it isn't quite convenient to have it all the way in there, it is nice because it keeps this area very free of any sort of clutter, and it still gives you the ability to do wireless charging. Get some storage bits around here, some functional cup holders with adjustments. That closes nicely. Open that up, some spaces for things, soft elbow spots, glove box. Yeah, it's a handsome cabin, although Alyssa and I both admit that we would not option these aluminum slats within this wood grain here. We think it's a little bit cheesy, a little chintzy. A nice unbroken piece of wood would look classier, or maybe even like an aluminum bit, kind of like these bits here. But I am very happy not to see any sort of piano blacks that are going to get all scraped up in the middle. Taking a look at the window sticker here, 2024 CLE 4MATIC Coupe. That paint is a manufacturer Patagonia Red Metallic, paying $1,700 for that. A lot of different options that Mercedes is going to give you. This is a leather. This is considered beige. It's pretty light to be a beige, I would say, but fair enough. Beige leather, feels nice. Metal weave center console, like that, but that natural grain black wood with the aluminum lines trim, wouldn't get that. Like I said, I just prefer more of an unbroken wood look. But really, the options prices are not too bad in here. 20-inch wheels for $1,100, a dash cam, as well as, on top of that, you have what Tesla would call Sentry mode, but I can't remember what Mercedes calls it. But essentially, it's the ability to record dash cam footage around the vehicle while it's off. I like that another manufacturer is adding that into their technology package here. And again, just having a dash cam built in is good too. So much more convenient than running something and having to run cables and that unsightliness. Multi-contour front seats with massage for only $950. Like to have that. Ventilated front seats, heated steering wheel. Again, I like that all these are individual options rather than having to get big packages that bundle everything together. The AMG line package for $3,000 right there. That's the only one that I can be like, yeah, sort of take it or leave it for this kind of car. But again, interestingly, only $1,150 for destination delivery. I noticed that on the BMW i4 we had recently as well. They only charge $1,000 for delivery, even though the car's got to come from overseas, and yet some of the domestic manufacturers are charging nearly $1,500, even though they're just coming from down the street. So that's a little bit of a way that manufacturers are upping the price kind of sneakily on vehicles, is the destination delivery charge. But Mercedes still keeping it pretty honest here. As I said, $70,500 for this one. Let's fire up that 2-liter turbo. And this is a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which means that it can bring itself to life like that without any sort of aggressive starter motor having to turn over. And you get just a little bit of hybrid hybrid motor assistance, give you a little bit of extra power and a little bit of extra efficiency as you're driving. Not a ferocious motor by any sense of the words, but very competent for this sort of application. Let's take a look at this big infotainment display here featuring the Mercedes-Benz user interface system, or user experience, MBUX. And I've been remarkably impressed by how quickly everything responds in the system. I've been using it all week, and whether we're pinching and zooming on the map here, the 3D capable map, whether we're adjusting the climate controls that are found in here, or bringing up some of your applications, including Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music, or maybe bringing up my wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, I'm really impressed with the responsiveness of the system. And if brands are going to bury so much functionality into the touchscreen, then they ought to respond as quickly as this. So I've been happy. And the screen is finished with a little bit of an anti-reflective coating, so I haven't had any sort of glare even when the sun's coming in with this big sunroof. Not very many fingerprints, not too much glare. So even though we're not doing with any sort of center rotary control, not too bad. Now, controls I haven't been a big fan of are these haptic touch controls on the steering wheel. There's a lot of functionality baked into the gauge cluster here in front of us, but I've found it difficult to operate it while I'm driving. For example, we've got this map right here, and I've wanted to zoom in like this, which while I'm stopped, is very easy to do. But while I'm driving on the street at 55 miles per hour or so at the speed limit, it's been difficult to maneuver that functionality without accidentally switching to different screens in here. Not only that, but same thing with volume. In order to fine-tune your volume adjustments, sometimes it's tough to get it just where you want it to be, as opposed to having the very satisfying roller that Mercedes-Benz used to give you. But without any further ado, let's use the very well-placed column shifter. I'm glad Mercedes-Benz has been sticking with that because it keeps this center area very free of clutter. Get on the road. This 2-liter turbo engine paired up with Mercedes' 9-speed automatic transmission. Overall, a very good pairing. And because it is that 48-volt mild hybrid system, fills in the lower power gaps nicely. My only complaints with the system throughout the week have been the occasional rough, not even a rough shift, just a little tough getting off of the stop-start with the engine off to moving forward. Oh, that's an interesting sound of the air conditioning turning on. Sometimes I find it a little bit herky-jerky getting away from the stoplight. And I do imagine the inline 6 would be a little smoother with that, with its low-end torque, but not bad. In normal day-to-day driving scenarios, the CLE-300 is straightforward. There's not too much remarkable about it. It is competently smooth. Nothing super remarkable in terms of a glide or any sort of very, very smooth or supple suspension, but overall nothing has been harsh either. I did get the opportunity to throw it around in the canyon a bit for the winding road test drive, and the chassis is quite good. You get reminded about how good the Mercedes brand is at making a competent chassis and something that's fun to drive around, but I really can't imagine too many people are going to be buying this 300 model and chucking it into the corners, but it's nice to know it's in there. But other than that, it's more about how nice of a cabin this is and how much of an easy driving experience it is. The ambient lighting, which you can see here even in the daytime, is very strong, and it's very dynamic as well. In the multicolor modes, it cycles between different color schemes that you can choose in the infotainment. I really like how it does that. I like the ergonomics and the seating position. We've got the massage seats that work nicely. These seat adjustments are kind of a cost-saving haptic control, and both Alyssa and I found them not as satisfying as traditional buttons to use. I'm sure it's one of those things that as you own it and you sort of forget what it's like to have real buttons, you don't really mind it too often. Admittedly, once you get your seats set, you're probably going to have them set that way for a long time, but it's a subtle thing that we've noticed. But coming into this corner, such a nice light steering. Engine is nice and refined. I would go as far as to say it's not quite as perfected as the B58 from BMW, but it's very, very close, and the transmission can go toe-to-toe. They're both really quite good. I do have to say, though, after spending time with this version of MBUX, I think I might prefer it to BMW's iDrive, and it's actually quite fitting because we just got out of the BMW i4 that has the newest version of iDrive. I think it's 8.5, and it works nicely. And I do like having the rotary knob in the BMWs, but with this screen as close as it is, I don't have to do any sort of leaning forward in my seat. I can touch all around the screen. I can bring up my Android Auto. I can bring up the navigation or use voice controls, and things work so well, and they're so well laid out that I prefer a lot about this system as opposed to many of those newer luxury vehicles that have the screens way up top. You got to reach way forward in order to touch them. And of all the cars that have climate controls baked into the screen here, I think this has been my favorite because they're right at the bottom where they're easy to get to. They're always up. There's a lot of controls here, so I can do fan speed and temperature and recirc and auto and AC, all without actually bringing up a different menu screen. That's important because in the BMW, yeah, you could do temperature right on the main control panel, but if you wanted to change fan speed, you had to click a screen and bring up the climate controls and then adjust it from there. And that's one extra step that is easier to do with no steps, like it is here in the Mercedes. Bringing it up here into sport mode. Yeah, it's not a ferocious engine. It's got grunt, it's got power, it's got these paddle shifters that are actually pretty satisfying to click through. And like I said, the chassis certainly is there. And I know that inline six would pull hard. So if you're somebody who does like having that satisfying torque and power, and you want this sort of vehicle, the 400 is going to be the way to go. I mean, Mercedes has that beautiful inline six. It works really, really well. But for most people in this sort of kind of form over function category, I think this inline four is going to do you quite well. My biggest takeaway to spending time in the CLE has been a lack of frustration. There are a lot of new vehicles, and I'll be fully honest, a lot of newer Mercedes products, some things like the EQ product line, where, yeah, they've done a lot right, but they've also tried to go too hard in this technology and haven't made life easier for it. It's almost made the car more complicated to use, and that's such a quick turnoff to have technology that just becomes frustrating. What I've been impressed by with the CLE here is that from the moment I got into it to now the last day that I'm going to have it, I don't think I've been frustrated by it. I take it back. I've been frustrated by one thing, and I was able to turn it off, and that is the Hey Mercedes functionality. It's a voice recognition, and for some reason it was just picking up on too many false positives, so that I'd be saying a certain phrase that is not Mercedes, and it would still be picking up and would start to interrupt us. So I've turned that off, and since then, I don't think anything has been bothering me in this car. It's very well thought out, and it feels more like a car that I get in and I'm like, okay, the developers and the engineers and the designers, everybody worked together nicely on this product, and they drove it around in prototype form, and anything that needed to be addressed, they took care of. You'd be surprised how often we drive new vehicles, and we're left with this feeling of, how did this get put into production this way? I mean, how did no one at the manufacturer stop and think, hey, this is terrible and we should change it? And I understand that a lot of times certain people throw up a red flag, but then somebody else says, nope, it's going to be this way and it's too late to change it, and then it gets put out into production, or we'll change it next model year or after the refresh or something. But I haven't gotten that feeling here in the CLE 300. I've actually enjoyed just about everything that comes to do with driving it, and in this day and age, for a luxury product like this, a very tech-focused product, there's something to be said for that. If you want a car that looks the part and is simply easy to drive and own, the new CLE is certainly something that should be on your radar. But before we get up and wrap it up, we're going to put the CLE 300 on the Daily Motor leaderboard. Before we get started, this should be pointed out that this is my subjective car leaderboard here for everything I've driven throughout the year and that I've spent significant time in. So this is not to say that any of these cars is objectively better or worse than the others. It's my opinion when it comes down to how is it to drive, how would it be to own, and how well does it execute its purpose. So current leaders, Kia EV9, Hyundai Ioniq 6, and Toyota Tacoma. CLE 300. I'm gonna say, all right, I've got a spot. It's going right here above the Audi S8, below the Hyundai Tucson. Kind of in the middle of the pack, a good bit higher than the GLS 450, admittedly, but it just comes down to the fact that this isn't the type of vehicle that I would buy. But I do understand that for its purpose, it executes it really well. It's been nice to drive, and I do think it'd be pretty straightforward to own as well. So pretty well done. It's just the cars above it, the Mustang, the Corvette, the i5, the S6, are all getting to a little bit more of a passion play, a little bit more stirring, if you will. And the Hyundai Tucson is pretty competent. But here it is, a new model from Mercedes-Benz. What do you guys think? Worth it over worth combining the C-Class and the E-Class coupes? I think it's not a bad move for them, considering coupes are a little bit less popular these days. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the CLE 300, check the link below, because we've got that dedicated members-only sound test, the sound system review as well on the Burmester sound system, and the Winding Road Drive. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.